Yeah, welcome back to Mark's Railway Trails on a Sunday afternoon. And where we've come from this afternoon was, remember one of my old walks finding Crank Station right over there. I've come kind of around this way today to carry this on, and we're going to be heading that way. And I'll just flip my camera around in a minute, finding the oldest part of the cemetery in St Helens, and it's got one of the oldest buildings known in St Helens called the Chantry. And I'm going to just flip my camera around, just hang on, and just look at some of the views around here. But I just wanted to start here really. We've just come over from Crank, had a walk over, and if you remember me walk on Crank Station, finding Crank Station right over there, and that took us all the way in, and we followed it all the way on the line into Rainford. So this is where we're starting off today, to at the back end of the cemetery really. But if you just look up there, we're right close to Billing Hill. You can just see it there now, and this is like a cut through really that everybody uses, and I'm going to take you this way and find the oldest part of the cemetery, and one of the old, well, it is noted as the oldest building in St Helens on the Chantry. Okay, and we'll find that today, and also find you a bit of a local hero's grave as well. And I'm not being disrespectful there. All the people in St Helens will know him as Johnny Welly. He's buried in the Chantry because he used to always go and put flowers on his mum and dad's grave there, and you'd always see him up and down these lanes and bump into him on all kinds of weathers. But what you're looking at down there now, you can see a path that everybody uses to cut through, and it gets you right over the tops. But we're not in Crank today, we're just heading out of Crank after finding Crank Station. If you're wondering where it is, look on Mark's Railway Trails and you can see the full walk. And trees are always a giveaway. If you go further along there, you might not be able to see it there. You'll see a line of trees running along to Crank Station that takes you right over into Rainford. And we've done that full walk. If you want to watch it, just get on my channel and you'll see it. But the way we're going today, I'm going to take you the full walk from Crank really, that takes you the back way into the cemetery in St Helens. And this has changed quite a bit now to what it was. They've actually got an electronic barrier here now, and the reason that is it stops cars were using it as a cut through, and that's why they put this up. And it's a lot more safer as well, because lonely places here at night. And if you ever want to do Crank, that's a lovely walk coming down here. Get to the path at the bottom, turn right, and then just follow it all the way around. And if you just keep walking around, when you get to the bend and you see a couple of houses, that's where a Crank Station is. Go and find it. The original station's there, the original sign as well. It's well worth a walk to find it. But you got the barrier here now, and like I said, the reason this was to stop people coming across and using it like a walkway really. You can just see it now. And at one time you could drive down here, and but the reason is there's a very important person, or did live in one of these houses here, which I'm going to show you. But that's the money shot today, looking across. And like I say, if you take the path down, go right, and that will take you into Crank Station. I'm just going to flip the camera around. We've got a few people walking down this morning, so don't like getting them on the camera. So it's a lovely walk, that, isn't it? There's some big houses here. I always flip the camera around because not everybody likes, when you video in. So, and what we're on now is, this is called Windleshaw Estates, and what I'm going to show you now, Windleshaw Estates, this is where Lady Pilkington, if you look right at the end, I'm not going to go in too much, it's all barriered, but if you go right to the end there, that's where Lady Pilkington lived, from Pilkingtons. And I've not got dates for Lady Pilkington, but I'm sure she passed away about 8 years ago. But that's where that she lived, Lady Pilkington, and done a lot for St Helens, done a hell of a lot for St Helens. But I'm just going to flip my camera over because I've got a few more people walking down. If you're wondering where this is, if you go down the path there, follow it along, and if you just see where the petrol station is on the other side, that'll bring you out to Windle Island. And everybody knows where Windle Island is, and you can get to it from two ways, just coming down the path, and that just takes you all the way back down, and that's where you'll find the old crank station, and it's still there if you want to find it. Just on the bend you'll see it. Well, people use this as a terrific walk if you want to do this all the way up to top of Crank Hill. And there's a lovely pub on top of Crank Hill called the Red Cat, and in summer, cracking beer garden out there. I've done that many times on my bike, but what a hill to get up. Well worth a pint at the end of it. If you just look in the farmer's field over there, I'll just flip my camera over to show you. You'll see some guys, and you're wondering what they're doing if you're metal detecting. I wondered what it was when I first came in. And just behind it there's the garage at Windle. But we are on Windle Hall Estates at the moment. And this will lead us in to the back of St Helens Cemetery, the oldest part of the cemetery. And this is the walk today really, to find the chantry in St Helens, the oldest building in St Helens. And I think it's, looking at my research on it, it's a load of history, which I'll tell you about it when I get there really. I didn't realise what's on the doorstep. And we're going to be crossing over the East Lancs shortly, and there's a bridge here. It's been replaced now, but originally this was like where all the horses and carts come down, and I'll show you the original like coach keeper's house. It's been modernised now as well. But if you ever want to do this walk, do it. It's a lovely walk, and when it's not raining, not like the other day around Carmel Dam where me and Steve Lowndes got absolutely drenched. But you know what, it made it, because when there's a lot of water knocking about at Carmel Dam, all the gullies and the runoffs are flooding, which is nice. There's the walkway that everybody was cutting across. You just see it now. I'll just show you. This is like a shortcut that everybody uses really, and they just cut across the farmer's fields there. And there's the guy doing the metal detecting. So this is Windle Hall Estates. We're just crossing over the East Lancs now. Busy motorway. As I've said to you many times when I've done this walk, this bridge is renowned, unfortunately, for suicides, and good to see that they've got these signs up now, which is really good from the Samaritans. Talk to us if things are getting to you, and somebody's wrote on it, don't do it, you know, and that's just going over the East Lancs now. When I stand here with my camera, they'll all think it's a speed camera. And that just leads you into Manchester. One hell of a straight road. And be careful now, it's 60 on here, and speed cameras as well. But yeah, it's just a sad part of the bridge really. And you get a lot of little signs where somebody's put a heart, and I'm not going to zoom in too much, but it's so sad to see things like this, that somebody's lost their lives here, you know, and the Samaritan signs are really good to see. But this takes you to the top end of the cemetery now, the oldest part of the cemetery, and this is what we're coming to find today, called the chantry. And you'll You'll see the oldest way into the cemetery as well, and I'll just show you, and here it is. I'm not going to go this way first, I'm going to go to the chantry first, but this used to all be fenced off at one time with all fences around, and it gives you the opening times that you're allowed to come round the cemetery, 9 till 4, November to February. And then when the lighter nights you can come till 7, and we've still got the old gate there as well. Please close the gate from you know, it's obviously been replaced that, but originally all this would have been fenced off and you could only go in at them times really. And obviously November, February is 4 o'clock because it starts going dark at 4 o'clock. I don't know what that is going over, but we'll have a look. Nothing really, but that's the oldest part going into the cemetery. And my mum and dad my mum used to come to the cemetery regular, and we used to go mad because she'd come when it's going dark and stuff on your own, and right, you know, lonely places, and but she used always to do it. Original walls still here that you're looking at now. And what a lovely walk, you know, if you want to come and do it. If you want to come and find it, you'll see it from Cowley Hill School. So handy. Hello. So easy to find. But can you just see all the original walls there, and you can just see where they would have all been fenced off at one time. Sadly all that's gone, all the wrought iron work has gone. As somebody told me once, that I don't know if that is true, a lot of the wrought iron work was taken down in the Second World War when they were using it to melt it down. Whether that's true or a bit of an old wives' tale, I'm not sure, but I do remember somebody telling me that. And this just takes you right to the top end of St Helens Cemetery, and the oldest part of the cemetery. But as you can see, all this would have been fenced off, and you had gates on it, so you're only allowed in it at a certain time. Well, that's all gone by the book now. And like I said, my mum used to come regular really, with birthdays, Christmas, Easter, and just for a walk she'd get the bus into town and walk it up to the cemetery and come round. And you know what, I'm glad I've kind of done all these walks with mum to the cemetery, because even now I come and put flowers on graves, and if I had to come with mum and dad, but my mum, sorry, I want to know where they were. But what a lovely place. And again, original coach house, there used to be a barrier along here, obviously been modernised since, and it's called the lodge. There you go. And in the chantry there's a group of volunteers that look after it. I'm not saying they're here on a Sunday, they tend to come a lot. If you come during the week you'll find them, and they're volunteers, and they look after the graves and find old graves that's been covered up, clean them all up, and it's voluntary, and a lot of them are knocking into the 70s, so they won't be here forever, you know, so dog walkers. And where that car going now, that will take you to Cowley Hill School, so if you don't want to do the full walk and just find the chantry, just come on the road here and it'll bring you into the chantry as well. And here, and this is it, this is where it brings you to. And We've just come down there from Windleshaw estates where Lady Pilkington lived, from the Pilkingtons. I know she has passed away. She passed away, I'm sure it was about 8 years ago when I did my blog on Crank. I had the dates and everything. I'm sure it was around about 8 years ago. But some nice little rose lodge, they call them all lodges, at the side. But I'm going to take you into the chantry and show you and give you a bit of history about it as well. I can get a bit of a breather because I've just come through Crank. This is the other way you can get into it from the cemetery, which I'm going to nip through and show you the little chapel that's here as well that people don't realise is here. But this is the oldest part of the cemetery, the top end. And when you come in here, like it's telling you there, just be careful, there's very uneven grounds in here. And I'll take you around and show it you. Like I say, during the week there's always volunteers in here, and they're clearing up all the graves and everything. We'll do the back end and follow it round. To all those who gave their lives for our country, we remember them. So there's a lot of armed forces and the graves in here as well. A lot of the old stones that they're keeping, obviously to redo the walls and things. I'll just give you a look back at it actually, and what you can see in the distance, that's what they call the chantry, and I'm going to show you that in more depth and give you a little bit of the history as well. Obviously been cleaning up here, and that's what they do, the volunteers here, to do a lot of cleaning and finding old graves and bring them to the surface so people can read the headstones. And there's a couple of famous people buried here as well, which I'll tell you about. Old stones. That is a very old building, which I'll tell you about. And as I cross over graves, I always say, excuse me, and I don't mean any harm, no disrespect. And I'm going to go near the wall and show you and give you a little bit of history with it as well. This is the oldest part of it. I'm not going to read them all out, I'm just going to flick on it because you can stop it on the video and have a read. And excuse me for walking on your headstones. And this is the oldest part of the cemetery. And that's what's known as the chantry. I'll tell you more about that in a minute as well. We'll just get a minute and have a look at it. It's normally a rush round me, and you miss things and should take it a bit more slowly. And a lot of them are so weathered now that you'd have to pause that and look at it. I'm not going to read them all out. I'll just zoom in it and then you can read them all. And that's what you're looking at above. But, just watch your heads as well. Going through the back end now and get your back shot. Excuse me for walking on your graves, I don't mean any harm. I'll tell you a little bit about it as well. But you don't get a bad feeling like some walks you get round here. You'll always see loads of dog walkers and people walking round. But yeah, this is where we come across from over there, is the Windleshaw estates that we came over from Crank. And what you're looking at now is a Grade 2 listed building. It's called the Chantry, and it was built in 1435. Sir Thomas Gerard, and he built it after surviving the Battle of Ancourt, and in 1644, looking at my records, when I looked on the history, it was used around the Roundheads during the Civil War, and dates back to, like I say, 1435. Records on the graves, originally was 615 graves on the Chantry around here. In 1835 it went to 1300, so there's about 1300 people buried on the Chantry area of St Helens. And a very famous person, when I was looking at me history of the Chantry, there's a very famous person actually buried here, Jean Baptiste Francis, from 1787. That's who's responsible to bringing glass to St Helens, apparently, in the area. And Windleshaw Estates was owned by the Gerard family, and they're actually buried in the Chantry as well. So a bit of history there for you. And out of the country, this area of the oldest buildings, this 6%. This is one of the oldest buildings on record in St Helens, and it is the oldest building in St Helens as well. So I just wanted to get it on the blog, really, because I've passed it so many times, and we've done a quick blog on it when we was finding Windleshaw Estates and going over to Crank. But the Gerard family buried on here as well, who own Windleshaw Estate, and done a lot for the area, really. But you could spend hours around here looking at the headstones and finding the names, but a lot of these headstones that you see now, they're all lay flat, and the reason was there was a lot of them that fell over and they were just getting lost under the gravestone, under the soil. And the volunteers who run the Chantry group, that's what they do. Any fallen stones, they bring them back to the surface so you can actually read what's here. And they're virtually all back to the surface. If you look, a lot that's turned over, they all bring them right back up so you can see them, you know. But it's such a quiet place, and I'm not being disrespectful videoing this. I just had to get it on the video, and there's a better shot of the Chantry. But what an old building, and I'll dig some more pictures out and do a bit of a slideshow on it for you. 1435 it was built, so that's how old it is, really. I apologise for walking on. I hate walking over the headstones, but I do apologise. And I've not got time today to find the Gerard's grave, but it will be in here if you've got time to look for it. But normally, if you're looking for somebody very important, you can tell with the side of the graves. And the size of the plots. The more wealth you had, the bigger grave you had. And they built an estate just at the back there now. I think it's called Chantry Drive or Chantry Close. Can't see a headstone on this, but obviously it's got to be somebody important. Like I say, you could spend all day trying to find whose graves they are, but one grave I am going to show you now, for all the people in St Helens who'll know this person. A bit of a a landmark in St Helens, really, this guy. If you ever went on doing a lot of walks, you'd always bump into him. Excuse me, sorry for walking over. You'd always bump into him. And it was a guy called John Smith. He was always round the chantry, round here, putting flowers on his mum and dad's grave. And he walked for miles. And I'm going to flip the camera around and show you John Smith's grave. For all those in St Helens, you'll know him by the name of Johnny Welly. He walked for miles, dressed like a tramp in Wellingtons, and you'll see him everywhere, but always around here. And I'm going to show you now where his final resting place is, and no disrespect, I don't mean any harm. And there he is, John Smith, and he died on the 19th of March, sorry, the 21st of August 2021. He passed away at age 78. And I'll just read out, a man who understood that the best way to be in this world is to be yourself. A true legend that will be forever loved and forever missed. Singing and dancing with the angels. Good night, God bless. You're lovely. And the reason they've put that, he always said that to you. Good night, God bless. He always said that to you. And that's Johnny Welly's grave, and that's why they've got 2 Wellingtons there. So rest in peace, Johnny. A character I've met many times, but we'll get a last shot up here of the chantry as we go out, and I'm going to go through the gates. Actually, I'm not climbing any walls today, but that's the oldest building in St Helens, and if you ever get it in a quiz night, that's the oldest building in St Helens. And it's a grade 2 listed building with a lot of history. Like I say, you could spend hours around here walking and trying to find graves and things, but that's the way we came. We're going to nip through the cemetery now, and I'll say to you, good night, God bless, Johnny, to Johnny Welly. And my mum's buried in the cemetery, along with her mum and dad, and her grandma and granddad, and my aunties. And when I finish this walk today, I'm going to go and say hello to them all, and quite a few neighbours as well. That's the reason for coming today as well. I thought kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And I tend to come to the cemetery about at least once a fortnight, up most times once a week, to just sit and have a chat with my mum. Well, there's another shot that you can see just on the back end now, and it was a lot bigger in its day. You can just see the wall going along it, but that was a lot bigger in its day, but a lot of history. I'm going to take you, this is the top end of St Helens Cemetery, and there's something else in St Helens Cemetery that people don't realise is here really, and I'm going to take you and show you, because not a lot of people come to the top end of the cemetery. And I'm going to take you and show you from the top end, and show you the chapel, the little chapel house that people didn't realise or don't realise is here, because the top end is the oldest part of the St Helens Cram and Cemetery. I'm going to cut through and just show you where it leads to. And if you just go down there now, I'll take the path down and just show you where it leads to. And you can just see it in the distance now, and this is what they call the little chapel, and a lot of people don't realise this is it, to be honest with you. And I know many years ago I was shocked when I came across it, to be honest with you, because I didn't know it was here. And I'm going to stick to the path because I hate walking, I'm a bit superstitious for that, walking across gravestones. But not a railway walk today, it was finding the chantry again that somebody's asked about, and it's landmarks that you never get a chance to put on you to video it really. And if you're going to find a little chapel, if you look across there now where all the people are coming in, that brings you to, that's Cowley Boys School, just over there, and you'll get loads of squirrels around here. I'll try and not spook it, but on one of the graves now, just look directly ahead here, you'll see one of the little squirrels. There he goes. And I'll just show you the little chapel. And you're trying to remember names and dates when you come on these walks, and everything I've told you about today, I've not got any notes, I'm just remembering it from research really. But I know this little chapel was built by a St Helens man, and I think it was Henry Barrister was his name off the top of my head. It's definitely Barrister, but I'm sure it's Henry Barrister that built this. And I think it was about 1959 it was built, off the top of my head. Whether that's right, I'm pretty certain it is 59 they started building it. And it's got a lot of Gothic kind of stonework on it apparently, as you can see. And people didn't realise this was here, to be honest with you. Everything's boarded up now, you know, grated in to stop the vandals, and some of the glass gone there, look. I'll try and find this on my slide when I do a slideshow, and a lot of the old history around here. You kind of look for dates, and I've not come across any dates. Normally the early ones always have a date on the stone, but you see some of the glass as well gone. And I can't see any dates on it. Normally the older the buildings are, there's normally a date on it, and I can't see any date on that. Commonwealth War graves, yeah, and that was on 9th of October. But no, I can't see any dates. And that way just takes you down to the lower part of St Helens Cemetery and takes you out, and that's where my mum's buried, and her mum and her dad and her grandpa and grandma. So I'll be going down there shortly, but I just want to show you some of the old buildings coming in as well to finish off today on Mark's Railway Trails. And I know it's not a railway trail, but I wanted to get this on my blog for so long really, and the railway trails led to finding a lot of local history, and I'm glad I have really, because you can look back on it in years to come, and people that don't know where it is, you can actually find it. But I'll just show you the way in that you can come if you don't want to go over into Crank. You just look over there now, you just kind of come round. Right at the back you'll see the chantry there. You probably see it a bit better now, flip your camera up. There you go, just in the distance, that's the chantry with the wall round it. It's the oldest building in St Helens. I'm going to walk you out now, and there's some old buildings here that's been modernised, but a good job they've done on them as well, which is nice to see. But St Helens Creme is massive, it's bigger than you think really, and And there's one of the memorials for the sailors and soldiers who gave their life for this country in the Great War, 1914 to 18, who lie buried in this cemetery. And that's just as you're walking in, you'll see it. Go further down, you'll see the little chapel, and a lot of people don't realise that that's there. I'm going to take you out and just show you some of the original buildings that leads into the cemetery. They've obviously been modernised now, but such a good job they've done on them, really. And you've got to be careful sometimes when you're videoing, because you've got to understand people live in these houses. But it's nice to get on the blog, really. And it's another local history of St Helens, really. I love seeing boards like this when you come to these places, and that just gives you a map of the cemetery, and it tells you, you know, all the local landmarks. And it's all covered, and it just shows you all the plots where the East Lancs Road is. Memorial chapel that we've just come down, and it tells you all about it, really. Friends of St Helens crematorium, and there you go. But these are some of the old buildings coming in, and I'm going to keep my camera on him. You know, Jubilee 1887, you see on top there. And you can just see some of the Gothic art, Gothic work on it. I'm going to sneak down and get a shot. Maybe I shouldn't, but if you just look at some of the Gothic work on them, you know, you see them all around. And that's Saxon's Lodge. You can just see it. There's Cowley Boys School, just on the other side, that you can see. That takes you down. If you go down the road here now, that'll take you to the Abbey pub. I'm going to scoot down here, and there's a few people walking up now, so just get you another shot when they've gone. But there's Cowley Boys School. So if you ever want to find it, that's the way you can come in. If you ever want to hit it from the other side, I've just come in down there, come round the corner, do a left. That's where it'll take you on to Windleshaw, Windleshaw Estates, and that will get you over to Crank. But I'll get your last shot now and just show you some of the nice buildings there now. And if you have a look at some of the they've coloured them in, obviously. Can't see any dates on that one, but that's called Sexton's Lodge and Sexton's Lodge 1. Anyway, that's it for Mark's Railway Trail today, from finding the chantry in St Helens. Hope you've enjoyed it. And St Helens, there's a load of history around here, hell of a lot of history, and be proud of where you've grown up, because we've got so much around St Helens, from lakes, dams, parks, just so much. And I'm going to cut off. See you on the next one on Mark's Railway Trails. I'm going to walk back now down the cemetery, and one last look of where we've come in. So that's it today on Mark's Railway Trails. Hope you've enjoyed it. See you on the next one, and that's for the chantry today. Harry, I hope you enjoyed it. Charlie Collins, come and see a lot of our history. You won't believe how much history is in St Helens. Come and walk it with us. And Tony Redmond, we will get back out on a railway walk soon. So from the chantry, see you soon on Mark's Railway Trails.